in the Marine Corps, we got Marine on one side, U.S. Marines on the other, on one, and then our name on the other. You guys carry your name on your chest. That's one of the things those people see when you walk through the door, is that name, the company name, and your personal name. So you're representing, every time you put that uniform on, whether you're a Marine or you're a plumber, you're representing your company and yourself. And so why not, if you're not going to do it for the company, why not just do it for yourself?
Welcome to the Waste No Day podcast, a podcast specifically for and about the home services industry as it relates to plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and electrical. More than a podcast, Waste No Day is a credo, a determination, a mindset. It is a never-ending discipline. It is a refuse to lose pursuit. It is a wake-up call every morning to waste no day. Now here's your hosts, Brian Burton and Nate Minnick.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Waste No Day podcast. Your hosts Nate and Brian are hanging out with you, and we are looking forward to getting into part two, our first two-parter, Brian, our part two of Lieutenant Colonel John Ballenger talking about his experience as a Marine One pilot. We hope you really enjoyed last show. We're going to pick it up here with a little bit of an intro and then get you right into the rest of that interview. First, we're going to turn to Brian for our quote.
Every man's life ends the same way. It is only the details of how he lived and how he died that distinguish one man from another. Again, Ernest Hemingway.
Okay, I was thinking maybe you were pulling a quote out of Scott Ridley's Gladiator there.
That would have been a good one. My name is Maximus Decimus
Echoes in the Halls of Eternity, something like that. Yeah. All right, I like it. Sticking with the Ernest Hemingway theme.
We should just do a long series of Marcus Aurelius quotes.
Yeah.
Because I quote unquote read Meditations over about 2 months ago, over a couple weeks. Just the audiobook is free if you have an Audible account. So I had read pieces of it over the years, but never actually did the whole book. But went through the whole book. It's pretty cool. Yeah, check it out.
Okay.
It's weird to just hear it, spoken by some dude with a slight British accent. You're just like, yeah, Marcus didn't sound like that.
Well, how do you know?
Well, because he wasn't, he wasn't British, right?
I mean, he was Roman, but Rome conquered Britain, so.
That's true.
Who knows? Might have picked up a couple accents here and there.
Yeah. So Ernest Hemingway. Anyway. Every man's life ends the same way, I guess, with the closing of the eyes.
I believe so, and the sign of the last breath.
Yeah, the stopping of the heartbeat. Yeah, so as we wrapped up an awesome part one with John Ballenger and get ready to usher in part two. A heck of a life he's lived already, and he seems like he's got a whole lot to go, and I definitely want to, get more into what he's planning on doing in the future.
Yeah, because he is at one of those changing points as we all come to one, if not more times in our lives of transition, seasons, if you will. And he is moving from a 20-year distinguished career in the Marine Corps into the private world, the civilian life.
Yeah. Good stuff.
As they say.
But I did want to touch on, and this episode isn't about this, and I wanted to touch on another quote that I used in a morning meeting of ours here recently. We rolled out a new 7-foot tall poster that we got of a technician dressed in the uniform that our technicians wear, and outside the body and the head of the tech, they're like bullet points, like hair is groomed and clean, teeth are brushed, shirt is clean and pressed, pants are ironed and, whatever. Boots are black, belts black, socks are black, t-shirts white, that kind of thing. And I started the meeting with the quote that I wanted to mention in here, which was Zig Ziglar's quote, "You cannot climb the ladder to success in the costume of failure." And I want to talk about that because, John's a Marine. I mean, you know, we met him, first time we met him in here, dressed to impress. You know how the Marines do it. They don't play around. You're not coming in there with a ring. Are you kidding me? Can you imagine showing up with a wrinkled shirt? You would do push-ups till the wrinkles came out.
Not a small guy either.
No, he's 6'4"?
At least, yeah.
He's a big dude, 6'5" maybe.
Yeah.
But I love that fact that you are presentable in the Marine Corps, like to go get chow. You know what I mean? Like just to see each other. Much less when you're presented like us heading out of the shop in the morning to go see homeowners, to go see the people paying for us to have a career. And so many of us are willing to do that without brushing our teeth in the morning, without a shower, without shaving, without getting our hair cut, in a wrinkled up shirt with stains all over it. Or just, you know, with a blue, brown, black t-shirt on underneath it when the dress code calls for a white t-shirt because you're wearing a white shirt if you're in one of the more presentable companies that wear white shirts. Thank you very much.
Right. Brian, which comes first, discipline on the inside or discipline on the outside?
Is this a trick question? Do you know the answer already?
No.
I don't think it matters.
You think it can come from either direction?
It has to come from one or the other.
Well, yes.
No, I mean, it has to start somewhere and then end up the other place. But I wasn't disciplined when I got to the first company I worked at that made me wear a uniform. I say made me. I should say let me wear a uniform, because despite being one of those plumbers who kind of made fun of those guys who were dressed in those white button-up shirts, when I actually got my own to put on, I was proud of it. I do remember coming home with it, and you know, Amelia gave me the, you know, and I'm like, yeah, pretty spiffy in one of these uniforms.
And then you woke up.
I was a fan of you know, having my jersey with my name on it, as I called it, the whole time I was in a truck. But it's a clean, crisp look, and at that time I was walking into the shop with my boots untied and not shaved, and you know, maybe my shirt not even buttoned up yet, just walking in and crashing in the meeting like, oh, I'll do it before I get to the first call. And my manager at the time would be like, nah, man, you're doing it now before we start the meeting. And that was discipline from the outside working its way in. Well, by the time I got here several years later, I was, you know, they had I'm sure you remember when I was a tech, there was a competition in the training room here. We didn't know it was coming. We all just walked in and sat down, and they had a bunch of office staff.
That's right.
As judges, and they made all the techs stand up, and they did a contest, just a surprise contest to see who was the best example of a uniform tech. And
shout out to, what was that, Larry?
I believe Matt put that together.
Shout out to Matt
Buckwalter.
That's a way to start a Wednesday morning meeting.
Shout out my man Matt. Yeah, and so that's how the meeting went, and I won the BF, the plumbing department, and Steve Allwine won the HVAC department prize for best uniform tech. There was no question whether I would win it, because I showed up every day like I was showing up at the first client's house, and I knew that client was very wealthy and really needed water treatment and a tankless water heater and everything else we had to offer. That's how I programmed myself to show up at the calls. Why? Because I was super disciplined? No, because my old boss was super disciplined, and he made me super disciplined. So that was from the outside in. I know plenty of techs here, and even there at the time, who just, they were military-like in their insistence upon themselves being squared away. So they didn't leave their bathroom without everything buttoned down. And there are people like that here. So that was, an internal discipline. But yeah, I didn't have that. So I wasn't a military guy or anything like that. I was wearing a t-shirt and jeans and whatever beat up boots I had lying around as a plumber until I got to that company.
Yeah, Brian, the what you're talking about there is the mindset that we're looking to create. That if you are out there listening, imagine that your boss hosted a competition like that tomorrow. How would you post up? Would you even make the top 10?
No,
Right.
they probably wouldn't. Whoever's listening, you probably wouldn't. Tighten up.
Brian laying down the challenge.
Let's tighten up, people. Come on. But look, so most clients don't care, right? Maybe some clients, maybe most clients don't care whether your gig line's straight, whether you have like shaggy facial hair, whether you took a shower this morning or not. Now, I know you think they don't know, but trust me, we know. Trust me, we know. We know whether you brushed your teeth. Whether people will say it to you or not is another thing.
They won't.
They absolutely won't. You just walk around like the emperor's new clothes. Go ahead and check out what that means. Like everybody's fooled and thinks you brushed your teeth and took a shower this morning. They know better. You're not fooling anyone. But most people may not care or may not say anything or, honestly may not care. But I think the last time I read a survey about facial hair, it's 5%, used to be 30%, but 5% of Americans immediately distrust someone with facial hair. Now, that's not a lot, but that's 1 out of 20 of your clients.
Yeah, and that lines up right next to the 95% of Americans distrust a Sasquatch look.
Oh, yeah. It's gross. And I'm not saying everyone needs to be clean shaven. I don't know how, what most companies, protocol is on that, but I am saying, and I know I'll get a bunch of crap from people about saying cut your facial hair off. I don't care. In fact, give me all the crap you want. Send it to Nate Minnick's Facebook Messenger, please. And please do. I want to hear all of it with pictures of your facial hair.
Okay, time out.
But if 1 out of 20 of your clients are immediately put off, and also you're probably all great communicators, I'm sure you can work through that. But why put the speed bump up in front of yourself? Like, you've got enough mountains to climb.
It's hard enough
To get this job from, if you're listening to this, you're probably at a high level company providing high level service, charging high dollars, bum service techs that don't care about their clients and charge $70 an hour. They don't listen to this type of show. They're listening to music. So if you're with that type of company and you already have this mountain to climb, why throw one more hill in front of yourself? If you're not going to be clean shaven, keep it neat and trimmed. Keep that shirt ironed and clean. Every client deserves a very presentable version of you, even if it's your 5th call of the day. You got to make that happen for them. They do deserve it, right? If they're paying your bills, and they are, they deserve at least that. So, seeing John, and anytime I think about the military and how they get down and how, just squared away they are, it always makes me feel like I'm not doing enough just in that realm, and there's so many other ways we can go into that. But for us to be more image conscious is a big deal, I think.
Absolutely, Brian. And Lieutenant Colonel John Ballenger is 100% image conscious and far more. We're going to re-invite him to join into your passenger seat right now. Our guest today, we are continuing with part 2, is Lieutenant Colonel John Ballenger. I read his intro in the last episode, but to summarize it, he is currently transitioning out of being a Marine One helicopter pilot for the presidential office, which means that he has actually served under 2 presidents, President Trump as well as President Biden. He's most recently retired unofficially and will retire officially at towards the end of this year, and is transitioning out of what he's currently doing into the civilian sector through a program called SkillBridge. We'll make sure to ask him more about that. But for now, we're going to rejoin the interview here and let you hear the rest of Lieutenant Colonel John Ballenger's story. So if you're willing to talk about it, let's talk about a bad day, because everybody in the home services industry has experienced a bad day.
Well, I mean, from a personal perspective, a bad day is losing an engine in flight.
Right.
It's when you're flying, your engines are providing torque and helping the main rotor spin and keeping you in the air. You lose one of them, you've got one more, but you lose some significant capabilities. And, that's happened twice. And I've had, smaller issues in flight, but, recognizing first that something's going on that's different and just taking a second to just breathe, right? Taking a second to just take it in. Take a deep breath, realizing where you're at, realizing this is not how things are supposed to go, but not just blindly reacting because something's happening. You really got to put forth that mental effort to pause, evaluate, and then respond.
So that right there, I mean, that concept, even those three words, pause, evaluate, respond, is that like trained into you? Is that natural?
It's not. It's definitely not natural, because we get into the simulator all the time, and scenarios and emergencies are thrown at us at rapid rate. And the first thing you want to do is you want to start responding.
So how do you begin to counteract what is the natural reaction and actually insert that pause? Because that's a difficult piece.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's where the training comes in. That's where getting in the simulator every day, or, every opportunity, and actually going through these scenarios and knowing yourself.
And you said you would do that Dunker course every 4 years, which sounds like probably the most intense flight simulation. It's
not fun. I mean, you're sitting in the Dunker, right? This can, and there's two pilot seats, or co-pilot seats up front, and then the back is lined with some chairs as well. And they put you in there and slowly dunks underwater, and then it flips upside down, and you're upside down strapped into this thing, and you've got to find your way out. But that's the end result. The first day, it's, hey, let's get in the water. Let's, crawl, walk, run. Let's get in the water. Let's get used to the water. Let's sit on the side of the pool with your feet up on the side, and let's dunk you upside down and let you feel just that water rushing into your nasal cavities, and then we'll bring you right back up. But those are some good training. Those are the best training that you receive.
Are there any YouTube videos of you in the Dunker?
No, I had those deleted. I contacted YouTube directly.
He knows the POTUS after all.
Especially before this podcast. Make sure those are taken
Excuse
down.
me, President.
That was an executive order.
The ones where I was crying upside down.
When you cry upside down, the tears actually go back into your nose, and you could drown from those. So.
Wow, I did not know that.
Out of all the ways that I thought I could die, that hadn't crossed my mind yet.
I was going to try to give Nate a swirly after this and see what happened, but I'm glad you cleared that up for us.
Oh, John, good stuff. Hey, another thing that the military as a whole, and certainly the Marine Corps, take pride in is the uniform.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So
I see where you're going with this,
at least
Nate.
from
I like
when...
it. Fist bump, buddy.
Marine Corps has the best uniforms.
Okay. From like the news footage and stuff like that of when I've seen Marine One, the pilots appear to be in dress uniform.
That's correct.
Is that always the case, or always flying in dress uniform?
Whenever we fly with the president, it's not 100% of the time, because we will take a president to maybe a site where there was a hurricane, or a site that are less than favorable conditions.
Sure.
And we will sometimes be in flight suits for that. But most likely we're in dress uniform, correct?
Okay, and that's you call it your blue and whites?
Dress blues.
Dress blues, okay.
Yep, it's the dress blue Charlies and Deltas. The Charlies are the long sleeve shirts with the tie, blue pants with the red stripe, and the Deltas are just same outfit but a short sleeve shirt for summertime.
Yeah.
And we, the pilot, co-pilot, and the crew chief are all in our dress uniforms. The crew chief, that Marine is the most visible person in the squadron. He's the one that comes down, opens the doors to both aircraft, and then stands there and salutes while the president comes in and out. And that Marine has some incredible pressure on him, not only just to do his job, but to look professional 100% of the time. And they do a phenomenal job at it. And not to mention that they also are the ones that are overseeing the conduct of that aircraft and keeping it clean and keeping it working and keeping it in the best condition that it can be to support the president and vice president. So there's a tremendous amount of pressure on that 20-year-old.
Yeah. So let's go there, because we have 20-year-olds, working for us in all the trades. And, well, let's just say it's not always up to Marine Corps standards. So how does the military, how does the Marine Corps get that driven home that this is important? And why is it important? I mean, what does it matter if, the shirt's a little untucked or the third button's undone? Why does that matter?
Well, we always talk about attention to detail, right? If you are faithful and you are consistent in the small things, it will transpire to the bigger things. It can be everything from keeping your shoes polished and your uniform in tip-top shape. It shows that if you pay attention to those small details, that you're probably paying attention to the bigger things that come after that. One of my flight instructors used to say, if you can hover an aircraft and do it successfully and do it very well and better than everyone else, then you'll be good at picking up an external load. So when we pick up an external load, we hover over the load or the item or the Humvee or whatever it is, and we got a long pennant that hangs down, and there's Marines underneath our helicopter hooking that to the load, and then when they give us the signal, we're coming back up and we're picking that and taking it to wherever it needs to go. But if you can hover and do that very successfully without anything under you, then you're going to be very good at doing that when the pressure's on, when you're over Marines and they're counting on you to not land on them or to damage the aircraft or damage the equipment. He also said, if you can fly formation off another helicopter and do that very well and look at your checkpoints and keep yourself in the perfect place, then when we have to, in our aircraft, go fly behind a C-130 and get fuel, you're going to be able to do that very well.
I mean, I killed this in the Top Gun Nintendo video game and like the
Microsoft,
early 90s.
Air Simulator.
But I'm like getting anxiety watching John do the hand gestures of this helicopter come up behind the C-130, and I'm like really thinking about the fact that you've done this at I don't know what altitude.
Yeah. But
like one tink.
Couple thousand feet. Yeah.
Is the difference between you being up there and you being down here in a hurry.
Yeah. It's just absolutely true that if you can be consistently good at the smaller things, that it will transpire to the bigger things. And Marines do that very well because we take pride in our uniforms. If you notice, you don't see any Marines walking around usually out in town in their flight suits or their camis or really their uniform, unless it's a Marine Corps ball or some big event that's going on in the city, but you don't see us out there because the Marine Corps, I think, recognizes that we could easily tarnish that image. So they keep very strict tabs on when we wear our uniforms. And that just goes to show that, or goes to tell us Marines, people are always watching. People are always evaluating. Doesn't matter if you're coming on duty, off duty, you're going to pick up your laundry or filling up your car. People are looking, people are watching, and they are making, they've got judgment based on what you're doing. They're evaluating what you're doing, and so we take it very personally. And we take pride in our uniform. We take pride in our heritage, and that's a Marine Corps thing. But I think that plays into being a dad. I've got 2 boys, and I remind myself, just like I do when I'm a Marine, my boys are always watching me. They're always listening to the things that I am saying. They're always watching how I'm treating my wife, or how I'm talking on the phone, or how I'm treating the service member the person that's coming over to my house to service my HVAC. They're watching those things, and they're developing habit patterns based on those things. So it's, to not get, too far out of the box, but it's a big, it's a big statement that people are always watching what you're doing, and they're judging you based on your actions or your inactions.
It's a matter of discipline, right? I mean, that's really what we're talking about. And in terms of discipline, I want to ask you, so every time that we see, the movie or the news footage or whatever, we see the Marine Corps or the military in discipline formation, whether it's how they're standing or how they're marching or how they're conducting themselves, and all these things seem very disciplined. Does that carry through to your personal life, or are you kind of like, you're disciplined over here when you're flying Marine Corps, but when you're at home, you're kind of like, whatever, I don't really care? Or are you like, I'm on time, every time, all the time, the whole way through?
Yeah, it definitely does develop, habit patterns. Jokingly, I said earlier, my dad said, hey, look, you're not going to join the Marine Corps. You can't even shave, and you can't wear the proper uniform for your school, and you can't abide by these rules. But you join the Marine Corps, and immediately things change, because immediately that there are bigger ramifications for your actions, and not necessarily just for you, but for the person sitting left and right of you. A story that my buddy told at my retirement last week, he said there was during officer candidate school, I got called out of the squad bay and I left my rifle unlocked. And that's like a big no-no, right, for us to do. And I left it and I ran outside to do something. And when I came back in, my whole squad bay is sitting there doing push-ups. And I stood there and I had to watch them. And I was getting some nasty looks and some viral, hate came after the fact.
Here comes the soap bars and the socks treatment.
In
I've seen Full Metal Jacket.
One of my good friends, he was, in the leadership role for that day. And that night they said, okay, Ballenger, Ballenger. Okay, there's 9 letters in your name. All right. You, the guy that was in charge of the squad for that day, had to write an essay, 300 words. Every word less than 9 letters didn't count.
So, oh my goodness. Brian wouldn't even be able to accomplish that.
No, I don't even know any words over 9 letters.
So, I mean, he's now spending his night where he could be resting in those few precious hours. He's now doing an essay because of my action or my inaction. Right. And so that teaches you at an early point in your career, in your military career, that you are affecting people positively or negatively based on your discipline. I was sweating it driving over here after lunch because I thought I was going to be 5 minutes early. We always say, if you're 10 minutes early, you're early. If you're 5 minutes early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. Right. And so I was sweating, and luckily I showed up. Nobody looked at their watch, but I did. I was 4 minutes here before 2:00. And that affects me.
And we were like, oh my gosh, this guy's like crazy early. It's like 3 hours early.
14 years ago, I married my wife, and I would say, hey, it's time to go to church. I'd be, all right, well, I got 10 minutes. So that's 10 minutes before church starts. And she'd be like, no, that's 10 minutes before we got to leave.
Did you ever get that fixed, and how?
No. So she is now like, man, she is reformed. She now knows that everything has, its cost. Every action has a time associated with it. So if we want to walk out the door to be on time, we got to leave 10 minutes early. And so it's cool to see her not have to go through the military, but also now respect our time as a family, respect other people's time, that we are now showing up on time or just early. And think about it too. When you go through the airport, how much more fun is it to stand in the TSA line waiting to go through that when you've got 2 hours before your flight? Man, you don't have a care in the world, right? And people are behind you like tapping you and asking if they can go ahead, and they're sweating and huffing and puffing, and you're just like, man, my planning results in a better environment for me,
for everyone,
my family, and for those around
you
me.
can actually let that family with all the toddlers
exactly
go, who's panicking because they couldn't help but possibly be late, depending on what they had to deal with.
But that just goes to planning and just diligence and respect for other people's time.
That story that you told about your rifle and the impact that it had on you when you walked in there and saw other people suffering because of a decision that you had perhaps unintentionally made, but still a decision and still a consequence. Did that happen? Like, did that resonate so much in your training that you never made that mistake again, when you were in active duty? Or was there a time later on when, because in our world, we have callbacks, we have warranties and stuff like that, where somebody before you went out and did a job, and, a lot of times unintentionally, it wasn't done properly. Maybe they were in a hurry. Maybe they missed something. Maybe they just weren't as skilled on that piece of equipment as they should have been. And so somebody has to go back out and they have to fix what should have been done right the first time. So in your career, can you hearken kind of back to a time when you either were on the receiving end of following up on somebody else's mistake, or somebody had to follow up on something that you did incorrectly, or, you're following with me there. And like, how do you process through not doing that again? How do you process through making it right with that fellow crew member?
Yeah. Really it's, knowing that everybody's fallible, right? Everybody's going to make a mistake, whether it's the guy that comes before you or the guy that comes after you. And I've definitely, after that, example, I definitely continued making mistakes. Definitely. I mean, I think, we have a saying in the Marine Corps: if you're not cheating, you're not trying. But if you're not, if you're not failing, you're not going outside your comfort zone, right? You're not going outside your box. And so a lot of us, we continually make mistakes, but it's being humble, recognizing that you've made a mistake. And also if you're the guy that comes behind, it's just knowing that, hey, this person might not have done things exactly the way they should have or could have, but I'm going to do it the best that I can. And I'm going to try to set the standard regardless of how things may be before or after me, but I'm just going to continue to do the best that I can.
Yeah. Why is that a personal mantra that you carry? This is John and this is how I do things, or, is there a higher value that you're trying to ascribe to?
Well, yeah, it's a part of it's the treat everybody the way you want to be treated. Part of it's, for me, do everything as unto the Lord. My dad, kind of ingrained that in me when I was young. It doesn't matter if you're mowing the lawn or washing the dishes, you are doing it for somebody else. You're doing it for your parents. You're doing it for your family. You're doing it for God. You're doing it because your name is, at the end of the day, your name's all you've got. Whether you die at 20 or you die at 85,
right?
Your name is what you're leaving behind. Yeah,
all rubies, I believe.
And so that to me is a big deal. And I continue to harp on my boys. I'll say, hey, go set the table, and they set it, and there's a fork facing one direction and a knife, facing another direction, and the water's spilled already on the table. I'm like, hey, boys, if Jesus was coming over to our house right now, he would not get a glass of water because it's spilled all over the table. No, so that's I guess it's personal.
Yeah. And man, that type of discipline, that type of like holding to a higher standard, I think it's so good, and I certainly am with you on that. Not only in terms of like doing things as unto the Lord, which as a fellow believer I would agree with, but also just because it's the right way to do things. Like it's the way that we should be conducting ourselves as professionals, as men and women that, have pride in what we do and who we are and how we do it and all those things. I think there's a lot of that in the trades, especially with the craftsman side of it.
Sure.
We see our plumbers putting the pipes perfectly parallel and measuring. I mean, same with the electricians, they measure the wires so they're perfectly separated the whole way down the run. And they all turn the angle at the exact same time, and it's all very pretty and everything like that. And that's a good thing. And that type of attention to detail, that type of pride in when you step back and you say, that's how it's done. that's the mentality that comes with the trades, and we need more of that. And however we can do to continue training that into the young people coming into the trades is something that we want to figure out.
I'll say, being on this side of the service industry, that stuff goes noticed. Now, it might not go noticed by a lot of people, but you find that one person, the guy I mentioned earlier, Robert, he came out and provided a service. And so I'm recommending him to everybody I can, all day, every day. Now, again, it may not go noticed. You may, in your example, be a plumber that is messing up on 45s and maybe the product doesn't come out as nice. But to the one person that does recognize that, man, that's when, if he compliments you or he says, yeah, man, that's the best work, I guarantee you're going to get a referral. And I'm getting ready to go into another line of work where I'm doing construction, or I'm overseeing construction. And all I've heard from the people that are in the company with me is, man, it's so hard to find quality work these days. It's so hard. But I guarantee if I find that plumber, or I find that HVAC guy, or I find that electrician that produces the quality that I'm looking for, and he can do that on a repetitive basis, and usually the first time, man, I tell you what, I'm going to throw work to him as much as I can, and I'll pay a premium because I know that I can set it and forget it. I can tell him to do something and it's going to get done right every time. And I think, the service industry should emulate that, because and I put myself in that category as a Marine, we're just doing simple things. From the outside, yeah, they may look big, but we're just repetitive processes. It's repetitive things, but that work comes out, and that's who we are. We are, in the Marine Corps, we got Marine on one side, U.S. Marines on the other, on one, and then our name on the other. You guys carry your name on your chest. That's one of the things those people see when you walk through the door, is that name, the company name, and your personal name. So you're representing, every time you put that uniform on, whether you're a Marine or you're a plumber, you're representing your company and yourself. And so why not, if you're not going to do it for the company, why not just do it for yourself?
Whew, I like it. That's spot on, man. That's good. That's good. Well, John, another thing that I'm sure has been in discussion with you and your family is time away.
Yeah.
Right. So you have served with the squadron for 5 years?
For this one, yeah, 5 years.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's pretty much, I don't know if you have like an on-call rotation or you serve at the beck and call of the president at a moment's notice, but you're probably away from home quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a significant amount. And, 4 deployments ranging from 7 to 9 months, you're gone away. And you're hoping that the wheels don't fall off the cart while you're gone. But, those last 5 years, yeah, it's been tough. It's been at the sacrifice of my family. And, when you are gone, you recognize the value of time, and you recognize when you get home that you are in makeup, you're in the makeup time, and then you are also in the actual time. Right. So how do you make those minutes count for more? And I like when I get home, I like to put my phone up on the counter and kind of just leave it up there, turn it off, put it on silent.
Can we cut this part out so our wives don't hear that? That's gonna be a problem when we get home.
But it's hard. It's hard when you come home from being gone for a week on duty, and something's happening and you want to be on your phone, but you're like, man, I've been away from my family for a full week. They have suffered, and I've neglected them, not intentionally, but I need to be present, and that was one of the best things my wife told me when I was getting ready to go apply to be in the squadron. I said, hey, babe, this is going to take time, and I'm going to be away from the family, and I'm going to be gone a lot over the next 4 years. I don't know if this is the right thing to do. And she said 2 things. She said, if you don't do this, if you don't apply, you'll never know if you were good enough, and you'll regret that the rest of your life. And then the second thing she said, you can be gone. That's fine. We'll never be upset about that. But when you're home, be present. And so we made that verbal contract that I was going to try. And if I got in, she was going to support me. And if I'm gone, I'm going to make up the time by being present as soon as I got home. And that takes work. You know, when your kids are like, Dad, welcome home, and they give you the hug, it's great and it's awesome. But then they're like, hey, come up and let me tell you about this toy for the 14th time, or let me show you this picture that I drew. And you're like, man, that's really not that good. But you have to be intentional. You have to treat them like their lives are the only thing that matter right then. And it takes time. It takes effort to do that. It doesn't come natural, you know, especially for me. I like to be doing, you know, I'm thinking about, man, I haven't mowed the lawn in a week, or I haven't done these lists of things to do. And man, I need to get to that bathroom because it's leaking, or I need to call so-and-so because I've got these problems. But you kind of got to put that aside and realize that their time matters too.
Yeah. So I commend you for taking that approach to your family. I don't know that we have anybody who deploys, as you would say, you know, for months or even a week at a time, but we do have very long hours, early mornings to late at nights, weekends, holidays, et cetera. The service industry never sleeps. And so in the service industry, we do pay the price. Our family pays the price for simply the industry. So what were some practical ways or decisions? I mean, you mentioned like you put the phone away. Were there other things that you put into place to help with that makeup time when you're back with your family? You know, did you schedule time together, like intentionally? Did you, I don't know, date your wife or date your kids or whatever it was?
Yeah, we, you know, from a very early time in my wife and I's marriage, we realized that we were going to miss a lot of significant dates on the calendar. I missed, you know, ironically, the 4 times I was deployed, I was deployed over Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's.
All 4 times.
All 4 times.
Ugh.
It just fell in that way. And yeah, it's hard to recreate Christmas when you come home in March, but when you miss a birthday because you're gone over a weekend, or you miss, you know, an anniversary or something, just making up for it on the backside and being intentional again about it. And it's hard to do because you're like, man, our anniversary was last week and I was gone and she didn't care and I didn't care. But taking that little bit of time to say, hey, this milestone was met and we need to appreciate that, that goes a long way. And it's hard. It's really hard to do. And I won't lie to you and say that I've done it every time. I've definitely come back and think, man, you know, I didn't get my wife anything for her birthday and it was 2 months ago. And, you know, I'm not going to do it now because what's the use?
Right.
But I've also recognized that things, you know, the relationship suffers a little bit when that occurs too. When a relationship or parenting goes on autopilot and you're not intentional, you can wake up with some time loss, and it may not matter right then, but it'll eventually matter.
So how do you kick yourself out of that? Because I'm imagining some of our listeners right now are perhaps in that place where they have been kind of on autopilot for a little bit and they've sort of allowed some of those negative mentalities to slip in, like, well, you know, it was 2 months ago. What does it really matter? I mean, he'll have another birthday next year. Whatever. 14's not really that special of a year anyways, you know, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
How do you kick yourself out of that and say, like, well, hang on a second, this stuff actually does matter? Yeah.
Wow. Well, my wife and I call that the crazy cycle. And that was off of a series we did as a young married couple called Love and Respect.
Yes. Egret Emerson.
Yep. Yeah. But the crazy cycle is kind of this thing where it's just going to continue, and it's going to continue in this cycle until you break yourself out of that cycle. And I heard a joke or a story a long time ago, and it was about a guy and a girl. They were older, and they're driving in their truck, old bench seat. And the older gentleman's driving, and the older woman's sitting in the passenger seat looking outside the window. And she leans over to him. She goes, you know, things used to be so much nicer back in the day when we used to sit together and just drive through the countryside. And he said, well, I've never changed my position, you know? And so it makes you think like, well, things don't happen overnight. They are gradual, very slowly. But usually when you recognize them, it's going to take a significant amount of work to get back to where you used to be. So if you can catch it early on, if you can catch those negative things, right, before they transpire into a lot, it's a lot easier to correct.
What is that saying? The weight of bad habits is rarely felt until it's too heavy to bear.
Yes. That was just on Team Believe not too long ago.
Yeah.
That sounds way smarter than what came out of my mouth. I'm fearful of the gradual, fearful of change that happens very slowly without you recognizing it, because it can be anything from the way you treat your wife and your kids to your weight, to your habits, to anything, drinking. It starts small and it grows and grows and grows. And I come from a family that's very dysfunctional. I mean, parents were divorced when I was little. Family members to include my mom who committed suicide. So there's like some skeletons right in the closet, and I know those things can sneak up if you're not careful and you're not intentional. So it's just kind of routine maintenance. I think that probably resonates with you guys probably really well.
Absolutely.
Routine maintenance is not fun, but it's way cheaper than a complete overhaul when the time comes.
We need to do an episode on that, Brian. The preventative maintenance of your life and career. I like it.
Yeah, that reminds me of that C.S. Lewis quote. I'm just pulling them all out today. He said, you can never go back and change the beginning, but you can start now and change the end.
Wow.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, not the preventative maintenance part, but what he was
You guys are
saying
way
was
more philosophical than I expected.
Well, we're not. We just write down a lot of quotes.
Is that what you're Googling over there?
Exactly.
Yeah. Google smart quotes.
Yeah. And nobody ever knows the pauses that we take during this podcast.
we pause for 15 minutes and you guys will never hear it.
Oh, John, this has all been excellent stuff. And you have served an illustrious career of 2 decades. I'm sure over that time, you've come across some pretty good stories about, things going right or things going wrong. If you'd be kind enough to jump into it and, share some of the things that you've learned across your career that have been impactful for you.
And let's not forget SkillBridge.
Oh, man. I think things that have gone well, when I did my retirement ceremony last week, I had friends show up that I had known since I was 3 years old and friends that I'd made this last year. And looking out at them and looking out at my wife and my boys who were like listening for the 30 minutes. I think they've never sat more still than during that retirement ceremony. I thought, man, I think this is successful. This is a success. And people ask me like, what does success look like for you when this is all done? And I say a wife and kids that still love me when I'm old, when I'm 80 years old.
Right. Kids
that show up to my house and love me, and a wife that has never left. And that's what success means. And we as service members, we get medals and awards for different personal victories and unit victories. And those are definitely badges of honor. Rank and time in service is definitely, something to be proud of. Cause it does take significant time, 20 years of serving, or 4 years of serving, it's all, based on the person. 20 years is no more of a service than 4. It's the willingness of somebody to actually do something for their country and to do something for their name and their company. So, success for me is, man, just having a wife and kids that I can still go home to and they still appreciate me for coming home. But I've definitely been full of, heartache and messing up, and I've definitely let my kids down, when when I've had to call them and say, hey, Dad's not coming home tonight, or, I'm going to, stay, the trip got extended, or to my wife that, hey, this thing came up, or hey, maybe I just messed up and I did forget your birthday when I was here. And, so you just want your successes to outweigh, the heartache. But for me, success is really, I tell people success for me is being faithful as a Christian, having my wife who still loves me, and kids that have said that my time meant something. If I'm doing all three of those things, everything else will fall into order. It's like what we talked about earlier, the basics, being brilliant in the basics, being good at the simple things. If you can do that and you take pride in who you are, you'll probably take pride in your name, your wife, your kids, your faith.
Was there a time in your career where something happened that you can look back upon and you say, like, that changed me? That changed the direction of my life, or that changed the direction of how I conduct myself? Or, was there a story or an event that occurred that really resounded with you, and maybe you hearken back to in even today's decision making?
Man, I could be here for another 2 hours telling you stories, but I'll tell you one that I relayed at my retirement ceremony. Luckily, I was fortunate to have the same guy that pinned my wings on me, which is a significant day in a pilot's career. He pinned my wings on me in 2005, and he did my retirement ceremony last week.
Wow,
so
nice.
Huge guy, huge pillar in my life. But he actually did something early in my flight training. I was really struggling with the system. It was a GPS system in this aircraft, and functionality and pushing buttons. And it just, again, I'm a kind of a dumb Marine, wasn't getting it. And he actually took the time out of his day. He could have gone home. He could have spent time with his wife and kids. He said, hey, let's go sit in an aircraft at night. It's raining. We spun up the aircraft to give it power. And he sat there and taught me the functionality of this system. Like I was the only pilot that mattered. And you got to remember, the pilot training is like this big train that just keeps going. And if you fall off, it's going to just keep going, and it's going to pass you by, and it's meant for attrition. They know that there's people that aren't going to get it, and they'll just move on and do something else. But he took the time to say, hey, look, John, this stuff matters, and I'm willing to teach you. I'm willing to take time out of my day to show you how to get it done. Man, that was such an impact for me at that time, where I knew, like, my rest of my career could be reduced to not being a pilot, not flying, and I wouldn't be here where I am today, and I'd have to go do something else. But he sat there and provided that time when other instructors necessarily wouldn't. And I've got several guys, I call them my 5 pillars. I've got 5 guys, and specifically in my life, that certain times of my life sat down and said, this is what matters right now. Let's make sure you're doing it. One was my pastor from Tulsa, Oklahoma. 2 or 3 of them were guys that I worked with in and out of before I went to join the Marine Corps. Just unique people, men that stepped out of their role as fathers and husbands, took me under their wing and said, look, this stuff matters. And so that's really affected me as a mentor and a dad, and looking for other people that I can kind of help and assist. So, I mean, I look at them, and I owe a lot of respect to them. And I'm not on any social media except for LinkedIn, but I made a post specifically just for those guys to say, look, I respect you and honor you, and my success is based on you.
That is excellent. And certainly an encouragement for all of us to not only be seeking out those mentors, but to be conducting ourselves in such a way that we can be that to somebody else.
Right.
And that's something that I suppose you're looking to do now as you begin your transition from military career into civilian life. And for that, you're stepping into something called the SkillBridge, which we hit at the top of the show. But jumping into that concept again here. So first of all, why the decision to get out now? I mean, 20 years is no small feat, but
Sure.
Was there something that kind of made that direction for you? And why choose the SkillBridge path?
Yes, the 20-year mark is significant. The system has changed a little bit since I joined, but when I joined, you got a benefit, right, for serving at 20 years or more. Now, for the betterment of the program, now service members are shown their appreciation through monetized, retirement now based on however much time they do, whether it's 4 years or 20. But at the time I joined, 20 years, if you went for 20 years in a day, you got, compensation. Unfortunately, for those that got out before 20, they didn't have anything to show for it.
Okay.
So that's why the 20-year mark, and really, leaving this squadron, serving the role that I was fortunate to be in, was just kind of like, for me, winning the Super Bowl. It was going out on top. The next gig may not have been as enjoyable, or it may not have been the type of follow-on job that I wanted specifically, or it would have required another move for me and my family. So it just lined up perfectly that this was the time. My kids are young. I'm able to get out, start something new, and still young enough to where I can learn something and still give some time to that career. So the SkillBridge program came along, and my commanding officer and my chain of command was fortunate enough to say, yes, hey, we appreciate your time in service. Go do this thing. So through a lot of deliberating and figuring out what I think I'm good at or what I want to be good at later on, I chose this path to partner with a local company here in Pennsylvania, and they are doing construction and development. And I just thought, man, what better way to start a new career than partnering with people that are doing this on a day-to-day basis, and a lot of learning, right, is falling on your face and making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. But if you can cut out that time of reinventing the wheel, if you can keep from making mistakes that people have made before and partner with somebody that knows what they're doing and can teach you well, man, that just accelerates your learning curve.
The mentorship, as we talk about here,
yeah,
often it's a fast forward button.
It is absolutely. It saves you years and money and heartache and all these things. And so why not partner with somebody that can fast track you? And so that really is what this second gig is about. And SkillBridge is allowing me to do that, is partner with a company that has similar values and similar, beliefs and wants to perform on a level that's exceptional and perform better than anyone else is doing things in their industry. And I really just encourage anybody getting out of the service, or any, company owners that have gaps that they would love to be filled by service members. Man, look into the SkillBridge program and take advantage of it, because there are service members out there that are highly trained, highly capable, highly diligent to do the job that they are given, and they just need a chance.
How much, and I'm thinking about the veterans we have here, who are by and large just awesome employees, amazing members of this team. One of them you got to meet on the way in here,
yeah,
who gave you a bunch of crap for being a Marine.
Of course.
John Ressler.
He hit his crowns very quickly.
How much do you know about the process from like a company standpoint, like, a business like ours? How does one go about that, and what is the process, and any idea what that looks like?
Are you talking about the SkillBridge?
Yeah, getting involved in that. I know you understand it keenly from a service member's perspective, but any idea how a company goes about it?
Yeah, I mean, the SkillBridge website itself, if you Google SkillBridge, it will come up with a DoD website, and it will give you links to see companies that are available to partner with. It will also show a business owner how to get their company registered with Department of Defense and become a end user of service members who are willing to take that track. I would have to dig into it a little bit more, but I know on the service member side, it's a very simple process. As long as you've got a commander or a chain of command that's willing to let you go and let you do that from anywhere from a couple weeks to 6 months, all you've got to do is the homework of figuring out the company and where it is and what their, the service is going to provide, and the training that you're going to be given. And then it's a couple applications and you're off and running. And it really is a unique opportunity because you have up to 6 months where you're still being paid to learn you're still being paid by the service, Marine Corps, Army, Navy, Air Force, to be on their roles, but you're learning a new job that's going to potentially take you outside the service, and you can be very successful at it by learning everything you need to learn in that time. So, it's a simple process, but it does take a little bit of work.
Yeah, I was just checking out the website here, and I'm guessing it pretty much covers a fair amount of civilian industries, including the trades, which is awesome. That might be something that people who are listening out there might want to check out as far as enrolling and becoming a provider or place to land, if you will, for people coming out. And it looks like you can. It is only for people who are basically ending their military career.
Yeah, exactly. You can't take a pause at year 5, go do SkillBridge, and then come back in after SkillBridge is over and continue as a uniformed service member. You have to be at the point where you say, yes, I'm done fulfilling my obligation to the uniformed services, and I'm ready to transition, whether that's after 4 years or 20 years.
So it says within 180 days of release from active duty.
Sure.
Meaning you have 6 months left.
6 months.
Okay.
Yep. So again, you're the branch that you're coming out of and the unit you're coming out of doesn't get backfilled while you're gone. So that's a chunk that they have to bite off on. And that's where that approval is sometimes can be hard to get. But if you're granted that ability to go do SkillBridge, it's invaluable.
Yeah, that would be, because imagine in our industry, what we could teach someone in 6 months of full-time internship, and the skill that someone could have, or at least the tip of the skill coming out and ready to be discharged.
Right, and at little to no cost to the company, other than the time it takes to train. But I mean, the payroll is handled by the military, so What a phenomenal opportunity. And of course, we would love, as Brian mentioned, we'd love to have more former members of the military join the service industry, because there's so many relatable factors, including the uniform, the precision, the detail-orientedness, the ability to serve with a humble attitude, et cetera, et cetera.
Tons of parallels.
Right, they go on. And what a unique opportunity, and we're so happy that something like that exists.
Yeah.
Well, John, as we begin bringing things in for a landing here, it's been so good to hear from you. And one of the things that that kind of struck me here at the beginning of the show was you said that you attempted to pass the pilot pre-test. Took you 3 times.
Yeah.
In our industry, we have multiple certifications as well. And even in different states, there's, higher and lower levels of what that requires. Across the entire nation, of course, I believe there's a universal application for a journeyman's license and then a master's license, et cetera, et cetera. And so somewhere along the line, if somebody is looking to move up the ranks in terms of their ability and their hierarchy in the trades and their skill set and all that, there will be testing, there will be discipline, there will be a requirement of knowledge and benchmarks that are going to occur. So when you hearken back to all that time ago and you failed that first exam, what was your mental state after you got that? I don't know if it was a paper that you got back or something, a letter in the mail that said no. Why didn't you give up at that point?
Oh, wow. I've learned since then that anything that you try for that's really worth its weight is probably something that's going to stretch you out of your box, stretch you out of your comfort zone. And, it was a gut check because my dad was a pilot. He started crop dusting when he was 14 years old. I've got an uncle that flew 20 years in the Air Force.
Wait, he was flying the plane at 14?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you think small town Texas, panhandle of Texas, but yeah, crop dusting at 14.
Didn't have his driver's license though.
Couldn't drive.
A whole lot different crop
drive.
dusting than my 14-year-old does, let me tell you.
So I came from aviation, and you walk in, you take this test, and it takes 30 minutes to take and 5 minutes for the guy to grade it and hand you back this score sheet, and it says failed. It's like, man, but it goes back to, again, like that conversation I had with my dad where he was like, yeah, you'll never make it. Something inside me, when I can't pass it the first time, it just, something swells up and is like, well, I'm better than that. I'm going to be able to do it, and tried again, failed again. You think, dang, maybe this isn't the right fit for me. Maybe this isn't right. But again, you try again. And, at some point, yeah, it may not be the right fit. But sometimes stretching yourself just a little bit more, going to study a little bit harder, trying to figure out what didn't work last time can result in this. And I'm living proof. I mean, 20 years ago, I couldn't pass a freaking flying paper test. And now I look back and it was the best 20 years of my life so far. So, man, I just encourage people not to give up on themselves, people around them, because sometimes just that little extra effort, that little, little bit more studying, one more attempt at doing something may be the difference maker.
And it's the pursuit of excellence too, right?
Sure.
A determination for what you wanted.
Sure. There's a great book out there written by Malcolm Gladwell. It's called The Tipping Point. And he talks about all the successful people, the Bill Gates and the Steve Jobs and the Beatles and all these people that made it. And it wasn't that they just were instantly good. It was that they had to work. And he says 10,000 hours is what makes you good. But man, I think for me, it was just the third try of a test. For some people, it's just the extra hour or two of studying, or the extra, bit of simulator time that you put in that just makes the difference.
Absolutely. And I mean, we're investing in virtual reality training and things like that for our technicians that is making that even more easy and accessible for them to do, to literally have a simulator. Like we have a simulator now.
That's awesome.
That you can do that without having a piece of equipment in front of you, where you can scenarioize all kinds of troubleshooting and whatnot that you can get yourself into. And yet you have to want it. You have to pursue it. I mean, we did an episode just the other week, Brian, which said, the ladder's there, but you still have to climb it, right? It's not an escalator. You don't just get on and get a free ride to the top. You have to do the climbing.
Yeah.
And the trades has a great ability to push you to another level and to take you as far as you want to go, but it ultimately resides with you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you found that to be true in the military and in your service as well.
Absolutely. Goes right back to your name.
Well, John, it has been an absolute privilege to have you on the podcast today. It's been incredible to hear from you and all the stories, the experience that you have. We are appreciative of your service to our country, and we're looking forward to having you in the civilian world, bringing all the talents and everything that you have, especially in the local areas you're working in around the Lancaster area where we are in Pennsylvania as well. So thank you so much for your service and for being on the podcast with us today.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back on, not too far away when you've gotten some of this experience behind you and hear let's just revisit and see how everything went.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if the commercial reality place doesn't work out for you now, I got an industry. Just saying.
Three.
Awesome.
I thought he was trying to replace me as podcast host.
Yeah. Thank you so much, John.
Yeah, you're welcome, guys. Thank you.
It was great to meet you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Hey, that's a wrap for our podcast today. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode with John. It's been fantastic to hear from him and everything that he's brought to the table. So many really good resonating points of parallelism that go from what he's been doing in the military to what we do in the service industry. And I hope that you go back and listen to this one over and over again and pick up on a lot of that stuff. Certainly, we want to end with the highlight there where he's saying push yourself into the discomfort zone. You know, go find something that is tough. Anything that is worth fighting for is going to require a little bit of pain and suffering, a little bit of energy, time, and commitment to push into. And we hope that's true in your career. And if it's not, it's time to make it so. As we leave you every week, we want to be challenging you, and hopefully this episode did that. There is so much more to be had, and there's so much more potential that you have inside of you. And all starts by you choosing to wake up each day and waste no day.